My name is Ethan, and my life was ordinary. Too ordinary. I worked as a junior lab assistant at a small private research facility, my days filled with data entry, sterile glassware, and the faint smell of chemicals lingering in the air. By night, I returned to my modest apartment, where I could finally let myself relax, or rather, hide. Hide the part of me that loved the soft textures of fabric, the way eyeliner could change the shape of your eyes, and the thrill of dressing in clothes society considered for girls. It wasn't a passion I could share openly. My girlfriend, Isabella, adored me for my quiet reliability, my steady presence in her life. She liked routine, certainty, stability, and nothing about my secret side fit that description. I had always feared judgment, not just from her, but from the world. Crossdressing, for me, wasn't an experiment or a fashion statement. It was a private escape, a part of my identity I only explored behind closed doors. The story begins on a gray Tuesday morning in the lab. Rain streaked the windows, and the fluorescent lights hummed above my head as I organized samples for Dr. Caldwell's latest project. He was a man of precision, intimidating brilliance, and, as I would soon learn, a fascination with pushing boundaries. His eyes often lingered on me a little too long when I handled delicate equipment, and I chalked it up to his exacting standards, until the day he called me into his office with a proposal that would change everything. "Ethan," he said, adjusting his glasses and pacing slowly, "I've been observing your attention to detail. Excellent work. But I wonder, could you help me test a new human response study? One that requires a bit more flexibility." Flexibility. That word hung in the air, ambiguous yet loaded. I nodded, cautious, unsure of what he meant. "It's simple," he continued, tapping a tablet with a diagram of hormonal reactions, physical conditioning, and behavioral responses. "I need a participant to undergo a temporary transformation, physical, psychological, the works. You'll be my subject. Don't worry, it's safe, controlled, scientific. You'll experience life differently in a very specific way." My stomach churned. I knew immediately what he implied before he said it outright. The experiment involved changing my body, my appearance, my outward gender presentation, at least temporarily. My heart raced. Part of me recoiled in horror. This was unthinkable, and part of me felt an electric thrill. Isabella was unaware of this side of me. Could I really agree to this? Would she ever understand? And more importantly, would I survive seeing myself in a way I had only dared to imagine behind closed doors? Dr. Caldwell, sensing my hesitation, smiled faintly. "Think of it as science, Ethan. A chance to explore boundaries, to observe, to learn. You'll gain insight into both the human condition and yourself." He didn't need to elaborate. The implication was clear. He wanted to see what would happen if I became a girl. For research, of course. My mind spun with possibilities. Would I look believable? How would it feel? The very idea stirred emotions I had long suppressed: curiosity, fear, and something dangerously close to excitement. That evening, I returned home, the rain dampening my coat, my mind replaying Dr. Caldwell's words. Isabella greeted me with her usual warmth. "Long day?" she asked, wrapping her arms around me. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, hiding the storm brewing inside. She leaned on me for a moment, smiling, and I felt the weight of the secret I carried. Could I do this experiment without losing her trust? Could I explore this hidden part of myself while keeping my life intact? The questions plagued me, but the seed had been planted. By nightfall, I found myself sitting in front of my mirror, imagining. The reflection staring back was familiar, mundane. Yet behind closed eyelids, I envisioned a softer, more delicate version of myself, long hair cascading over my shoulders, smooth skin, eyes subtly enhanced, clothes that made me feel like I belonged to a different world. And that's when I made my choice. Not fully, not yet. But I decided to step into Dr. Caldwell's experiment. The next day, I arrived at the lab, my nerves taut. Dr. Caldwell was waiting with a small room prepared for the transformation: makeup, outfits, prosthetics, and devices I didn't fully understand. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and possibility. He gestured for me to sit. "Relax," he said. "Every detail is controlled. You're safe." I took a deep breath, feeling the first flickers of excitement. There was fear, yes, but underneath it was a thrill I couldn't deny. For the first time, I would see myself not as Ethan the lab assistant, not as Isabella's boyfriend, but as someone entirely new. Someone I had secretly longed to be. As Dr. Caldwell began explaining the steps, hair treatment, skin conditioning, clothing selection, makeup, I felt a strange duality. My mind raced with what-ifs, while my body responded with curiosity. This wasn't just science, it was personal, intimate, transformative. And when the first brush of foundation touched my face, when the first wig was fitted, I felt a shiver of unfamiliar delight. By the time the process was halfway complete, I caught my reflection in a small handheld mirror. I barely recognized the person staring back. Delicate features, softened contours, wide eyes that reflected both apprehension and wonder. I was vulnerable, exposed, and utterly enthralled. And yet, amidst all the transformation, one thought persisted relentlessly. Isabella. She had no idea. She thought she knew me completely. But in a few hours, I would be unrecognizable even to her. How would she react if she saw me like this? Would she laugh, be curious, or withdraw? The answer was unknown. The stakes were high. My secret, my fear, my curiosity, all balanced on the edge of this experiment. And in that precarious moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about science. It was about discovery, identity, and the thrill of stepping fully into a side of myself I had long denied. Little did I know, the experiment would challenge far more than my appearance. It would test my relationship, my courage, and the very way I saw myself, and it would lead me down a path where excitement and fear blurred into one irresistible, dangerous adventure. The next morning, I returned to Dr. Caldwell's lab with a mix of dread and anticipation. The room where the experiment would begin was brightly lit, every surface meticulously clean. On a counter lay an array of wigs, dresses, shoes, and makeup kits. The tools of transformation gleamed under the fluorescent light, promising a radical change that my mind both craved and feared. "Ethan," Dr. Caldwell said, his voice calm yet authoritative, "today we start the process. Every step is reversible, safe. I need you to focus, to follow instructions exactly." I nodded, swallowing my nervousness. My hands were clammy, and my pulse raced as I stepped into the small examination area. For the first time in my life, I felt my identity stretching, bending towards something unfamiliar yet thrilling. The first step was subtle, my hair. Dr. Caldwell carefully applied a serum that would soften its texture and encourage a slightly feminine wave. He adjusted my hairline with meticulous precision, tucking strands around my face to frame my features. I could feel my reflection changing with every gentle stroke of the comb, my familiar face morphing into a softer, more delicate version of itself. "Look closely," he instructed, holding a handheld mirror before me. I barely recognized myself. My jawline seemed less harsh, my cheekbones more pronounced, my eyes wider. A shiver of excitement ran down my spine. Next came the clothing selection. Dr. Caldwell opened a wardrobe stocked with dresses, skirts, blouses, and tights. He encouraged me to explore textures: soft cotton, silky chiffon, light lace. I hesitated at first, my fingers brushing against the fabrics, feeling the thrill of forbidden softness against my skin. "Try this," he suggested, holding a pastel dress that felt impossibly delicate. I slipped it over my head, feeling the fabric hug my shoulders and waist in a way that made me both exhilarated and painfully vulnerable. The sensation of wearing something so obviously feminine made my heart race. My mind swirled with thoughts. Could I walk in this? Would Isabella ever understand? Makeup was next, and it was far more intimate than I had imagined. Dr. Caldwell guided me through the process. Foundation to soften my features, eyeshadow to accentuate my eyes, blush to add warmth, and a hint of lipstick that tingled as it touched my lips. Each stroke was a revelation. I caught myself smiling nervously in the mirror, stunned at how much these small changes altered the person staring back. Then came the heels. A pair of soft, pink pumps, modest in height, but transformative in effect. I slipped my feet into them, wobbling slightly at first. The feeling was intoxicating, each step a blend of power and precariousness, every sway of my hips amplified by the shoes. My reflection in the mirror now showed a complete metamorphosis. I was no longer Ethan, not entirely. The reflection was delicate, feminine, yet unmistakably me. As the transformation progressed, Dr. Caldwell introduced behavioral exercises to complement the physical change. I practiced walking, gesturing, even sitting in ways that emphasized my new form. The exercises were oddly liberating, forcing me to inhabit a persona I had long fantasized about but never dared to embody publicly. Hours passed, and the line between anticipation and fear blurred. I was alone in the lab much of the time, save for Dr. Caldwell's quiet supervision, which only heightened my sense of suspense. Every movement felt consequential. Every glance at the mirror showed progress, but also vulnerability. I knew that a single mistake could expose me, not just to Isabella, but to the public eye if anyone discovered the lab's secret project. The tension escalated when Dr. Caldwell proposed a trial photo session. He wanted to document the transformation scientifically and artistically. I posed in front of the camera, my body tense with self-consciousness, yet energized by the thrill. The click of the shutter echoed in the room, each sound a reminder of the precarious balance between exposure and secrecy. At one point, he handed me a long wig, dark and glossy, to complete the look. I hesitated, fingers brushing the strands. The wig slipped over my head, altering my silhouette further, making me almost unrecognizable. I stared at the reflection, an entirely new person, yet undeniably me. My heart raced, excitement mingling with the fear of discovery. As the hours dragged on, I began to experience a deep internal conflict. I loved the thrill, the beauty, the attention that the transformation brought. Yet part of me recoiled at the idea of anyone seeing this side of me, especially Isabella. Would she accept this? Could I keep her from discovering the experiment's truth? My mind spun with what-ifs as I practiced walking, posing, and speaking in a slightly higher, softer tone. Dr. Caldwell, noticing my anxiety, leaned in. "Ethan, this is exactly why the experiment is important. Observe your emotions. Notice the changes in confidence, vulnerability, and behavior. Document everything. Every flutter of the heart, every hesitation. These are data points." By late afternoon, I had fully immersed myself in the experiment. I could feel the dress brushing against my skin, the wig adding weight and shaping my face, the heels forcing a new gait. I had never felt so exposed, yet so alive. Every movement was a dance of risk and exhilaration. Then came the suspenseful twist. A sudden sound, a knock at the lab door, made my pulse jump. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the door wasn't normally accessed during experiments. My reflection in the mirror froze me in place. The knock came again, louder. I realized my nerves weren't just from the transformation. Someone could see me like this. Could it be Isabella? A colleague? My heart hammered as Dr. Caldwell approached cautiously, checking the peephole. "It's a delivery," he said, his voice calm. "Nothing to worry about. But this is good practice." Practice. He meant maintaining composure under unexpected scrutiny. I nodded, hands trembling slightly. The incident, though minor, crystallized the thrill and risk of my new persona. Every step, every glance in the mirror, every click of the heels became a test of self-control and courage. Hours later, I finally left the lab, my mind buzzing. The world outside seemed sharper, louder, more intimidating. I caught glimpses of my reflection in shop windows, in passing cars. For the first time, I felt the tension between who I had been and who I could become. Every step was a negotiation between vulnerability and excitement, fear and empowerment. That night, I returned home, exhausted yet exhilarated. Isabella greeted me at the door, smiling, unaware of the transformation I had endured. I hugged her tightly, feeling the stark contrast between my secret life and the ordinary facade I presented to the world. I went to my room, looking into the mirror. The image reflected hours of experimentation, a perfect blend of my masculine features and the soft, delicate persona the experiment had drawn out. I ran my hands over the wig, touched the fabric of the dress I had practiced in, and realized how deeply I had come to inhabit this new self. And yet, the suspense remained. Isabella didn't know. The lab experiment wasn't over. And the next day promised new challenges, new tests of composure, and new moments of discovery. The thrill of living this secret life had only begun, and I knew that every decision from now on would carry the weight of exposure, desire, and the tantalizing risk of being caught. The following morning, I returned to Dr. Caldwell's lab with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The experiment had progressed far beyond mere curiosity. It had become an obsession. Each session had drawn me deeper into this new persona, a version of myself that was delicate, confident, and strangely intoxicating. But with every transformation came the constant, gnawing fear of exposure. Dr. Caldwell greeted me with a clipboard and a calm smile. Today, we'll document behavioral responses in a semi-public scenario. You'll leave the lab under controlled conditions, interact socially, and we'll monitor responses. Think of it as the penultimate step. My stomach churned. Semi-public. I asked cautiously. Controlled, but outside the lab. You'll wear your full transformation, clothing, makeup, wig, and heels. Remember your posture, your movements, your voice. Confidence is key. But any mistake could lead to exposure, which is why the experiment is so crucial. The adrenaline surged. This wasn't just a test of appearance, it was a test of courage, secrecy, and adaptability. I changed into the outfit Dr. Caldwell selected, a soft lavender dress that fell just above my knees, accentuating my newly softened features. The wig framed my face perfectly, and the heels gave me an unfamiliar sway with each step. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself, yet every glance at my reflection sent a thrill coursing through me. We arrived at the controlled environment, a small coffee shop rented out for the experiment. Staff and a few observers were aware of the setup, but anyone unfamiliar would see me as just another young woman. My heart raced as I walked in, every eye on me, even if only subconsciously. Dr. Caldwell instructed me to approach the counter and order a drink, interact with the barista, and then move to a seat by the window. The first few words out of my mouth were shaky, my voice higher than usual, but it sounded believable. I felt my confidence grow with each interaction, the thrill of inhabiting this persona blending with fear of being discovered. Then came the first close call. A woman seated nearby glanced directly at me, her expression curious. She leaned over and whispered to her friend. She looks familiar. I could swear I've seen her somewhere. My pulse raced. Was she suspicious? Was my secret at risk? I kept my composure, laughing lightly, pretending not to notice. Dr. Caldwell observed from a corner, taking notes, his eyes calm yet piercing. The thrill of being nearly exposed sent shivers down my spine. By mid-afternoon, I had mastered the persona to a degree, but the experiment escalated when Dr. Caldwell introduced additional variables, unexpected visitors, sudden requests, and subtle social challenges. Each interaction became a test of adaptability. Could I maintain the delicate balance between fear and excitement, secrecy and authenticity? One challenge was particularly harrowing. A delivery person accidentally entered the rented space, attempting to deliver a package to the owner of the cafe. My heart stopped as he approached, scrutinizing me as though trying to place a face. My hands shook, my voice trembled, but I maintained composure, answering politely, redirecting him subtly, and avoiding any slip that might reveal my identity. Another challenge involved a controlled friend of Dr. Caldwell entering the scene unexpectedly. She approached me, smiling, and asked questions about my outfit, hair, and makeup. I felt my entire being tense, aware that even a single misstep could ruin the experiment and expose my secret. I forced casual responses, hoping my trembling didn't show. The adrenaline surged, the thrill and fear interweaving into a heady, overwhelming mix. Hours passed, and the experiment grew more psychologically intense. Dr. Caldwell instructed me to take photos, record short videos, and interact as naturally as possible. I posed, laughed, and moved like someone entirely different, yet every glance in the mirror reminded me of the fragile duality of my existence. My reflection showed a confident young woman, but behind those eyes was Ethan, vulnerable, anxious, and exhilarated. The true climax approached when Isabella, unplanned and unknown to Dr. Caldwell, entered the cafe. She had come to surprise me, completely unaware of the experiment. My blood ran cold as I saw her approach, her eyes locking on mine. The pounding in my chest was deafening. My secret, the thrill I had been nurturing, was about to collide with the person whose opinion mattered most. I froze. My posture stiffened. Dr. Caldwell whispered instructions. Remain calm, respond naturally, maintain the persona. But how could I? Every nerve in my body screamed. I wanted to run, hide, melt into the floor, or transform back instantly, but the experiment wouldn't allow it. Isabella smiled, unaware, and greeted me warmly. Ethan? Or? Her eyes flickered with confusion, then curiosity. I stammered, voice higher than I expected, words fumbling. It's a bit of an experiment, I said, trying to sound casual. My knees trembled, heels unsteady. I could feel her eyes scanning me, noting every detail, the dress, the wig, the subtle makeup. Her expression was a mixture of shock, amusement, and concern. This is really you? Yes, I admitted, swallowing hard. It's temporary, part of a study. Dr. Caldwell, it's science. Her reaction was unreadable. She stepped closer, examining me with an intensity that made my stomach twist. I realized that my secret self, the side I had explored only in private, was fully exposed to the one person I cared about most. The thrill of transformation collided violently with fear of rejection. Then came a symbolic moment. A gust of wind from the open cafe door shifted my wig slightly, revealing a small patch of my natural hairline. Isabella noticed immediately, her eyes widening. Time seemed to freeze. The mirror of my dual existence, the girl I had become and the Ethan she knew, was reflected in her gaze. Dr. Caldwell observed silently, documenting reactions. The controlled experiment had turned wildly unpredictable. Every heartbeat echoed in my chest as Isabella processed what she saw, and I understood that my life, my identity, and my relationship hung in the balance. For the next several minutes, the tension escalated. Isabella asked questions, some gentle, some probing, testing my composure and the credibility of the explanation. I answered carefully, aware that any slip could reveal the depth of my secret desires. Every movement, every word, every blink was scrutinized. By the end of the day, Isabella left with a mixture of disbelief, curiosity, and something unspoken lingering between us. I returned to the lab, drained but exhilarated. Dr. Caldwell congratulated me. You've handled stress, exposure, and transformation remarkably. But the final phase, the real test, awaits. You'll face the ultimate challenge tomorrow. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on the day. I had walked through fear, flirted with exposure, and embodied a persona I had never dared to explore publicly. Yet the shadow of risk remained. Isabella's perception of me had shifted, and the boundary between my secret self and public identity had blurred dangerously. The experiment was no longer just science. It was a journey through identity, fear, and exhilaration, a journey that would test my limits, redefine my self-perception, and push me toward choices I had never imagined. And I knew, deep down, that the next day would bring an event that could change everything forever, a confrontation, a revelation, or a moment of exposure that would leave me vulnerable in ways I had never experienced. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the lab as I packed up the last of the equipment. My legs ached from the heels, my fingers still tingled from the careful application of makeup, and my mind was a whirlwind of emotions: fear, excitement, and something dangerously close to exhilaration. Dr. Caldwell observed me quietly, clipboard in hand, his expression unreadable. "You did well today, Ethan," he said finally, his voice calm but weighted with unspoken meaning. "Tomorrow, we push boundaries even further. But tonight, reflect. Prepare yourself." I nodded, though my thoughts were far from preparation. Isabella's face kept replaying in my mind, curious, shocked, questioning. Could she forgive me if she knew how deep the experiment had gone? Could I forgive myself for hiding this side of me for so long? My reflection in the mirror stared back, a delicate, transformed version of myself that I barely recognized. Then it happened, the knock at the lab door. Not soft, not casual. Loud, deliberate, urgent. My heart skipped a beat. Who could it be at this hour? Dr. Caldwell glanced toward the door, his expression tight. "Stay calm. We don't know who it is. Don't panic." I took a shallow breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. The heels clicked against the floor as I approached the door, every step echoing in the quiet room. I peeked through the small window in the door and froze. It wasn't Isabella. Not entirely. A shadowed figure stood there, and though I couldn't make out the face clearly, there was something familiar, unsettling about the presence. My mind raced. Was it someone from the lab? A colleague? A neighbor? Or had the experiment somehow leaked beyond our controlled environment? Dr. Caldwell placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "Whatever happens, remember your training. Composure. Confidence. Identity. Maintain the persona." I nodded, swallowing hard. The adrenaline coursing through me was nearly unbearable. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to vanish, but I knew that stepping back now could unravel everything. The knocking continued, insistent, growing louder. My pulse thundered in my ears, blending with the sound of my own breathing. I felt exposed, fragile. Every ounce of the transformation, makeup, wig, dress, heels, amplifying my vulnerability. I was more myself and less myself at the same time. The duality of Ethan and the girl I had become clashed violently in my chest. Finally, the door handle rattled. My breath caught. This was it. The moment that could undo all my careful concealment, that could shatter the delicate balance between secrecy and exposure. Every thought of Isabella, every fear of judgment, every thrill of living in this new persona converged into a single, suspended heartbeat. Dr. Caldwell whispered, "Open it slowly. Maintain control. Whatever you do, don't let panic show." I gripped the handle, fingers trembling. The world seemed to narrow to the door, the shadows outside, and the reflection of my dual selves in the nearest mirror. The knock came once more urgent than before. And then, just as I was about to turn the knob, the sound of footsteps approached from behind, another, unexpected presence inside the lab. My heart lurched. The tension was unbearable. The air felt electric, charged with the danger of discovery, the thrill of exposure, and the fragile line between fear and exhilaration. I froze, caught between the door, the mirror, and the unknown intruder. The reflection staring back at me was not just the transformed girl, it was Ethan, vulnerable, exhilarated, terrified. And in that suspended moment, I realized the experiment had become something far more than science. It had become a test of identity, courage, and control. The door creaked, the shadows shifted, and time itself seemed to hold its breath. Would I be discovered? Would Isabella ever understand? Or was my secret about to unravel in ways I had never imagined? The screen cuts to black. Text on screen. What would you do if your secret life was exposed? Comment your predictions below.